Hello, you lovely listeners. I'm Amy. Welcome to the Really Good Conversations podcast, where we will delve into the minds of the business people we have met in the process of launching our first card game. We will be uncovering their secrets to success, their biggest mistakes, and sharing the key lessons they have picked up en route. So, if you're looking for an engaging chinwag mixed with business insights and a good pinch of fun, you're in the right place. Let's have a really good conversation. Welcome to the Really Good Conversations podcast. Today I am joined by Stacey McNeil, who is the talented artist and creator behind the award-winning brand Fox Under the Moon, which is a card and gift brand that has gained widespread recognition, featuring a signature character, a charming little fox, who's often accompanied by a moon and other whimsical elements, all of which convey themes of love, self-acceptance and hope. Welcome to the podcast, Stacey.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so delighted you could join us today and hear all about your story and your journey. So tell our listeners a little bit of the origins of Fox Under the Moon, how you came to launch this brand.
Yeah, sure. So, a fantastic introduction. Thank you. That was much better than I could have written about the brand myself. We basically do greeting cards, books, gifts, all based around encouraging self-love, positivity, positive mental health, that kind of thing. And the story in a nutshell is that it started during the pandemic, during lockdown. So it's one of those sort of good, nice little positive things to have come out of the difficult time that was COVID. And I had a friend at the time who was going through a bit of a difficult time, and I couldn't find a greeting card that sort of said what I wanted to say, which was essentially, I know it's a bit rubbish right now, but it's going to be okay. So I'd recently, because I was out of work during the pandemic, so I'd recently taken up watercolour, very, very unsuccessfully. So I was at the point where I could just about draw or paint rather a sky with stars and a moon in it. And naturally, the fox was a little progression on from that. So yeah, I created this little greeting card with a little uplifting message on it. And it was sort of shared on social media. I think my mum shared it and, bits and pieces like that kind of thing. And it sort of snowballed a little bit for us from there, or for me, should I say. People saying, oh, well, that's nice. Could you draw one about this, or could you do one about this? And, things like grief and anxiety, that kind of thing. It just went from there. And it went from, I sort of decided I'd set up a little page. I never had any intention of it being a business. It was just, something to keep me occupied for a while, and people really resonated, I think, because the pictures that I draw have the little sayings with them, positive sort of quotes and things. I think that was, it just resonated with people at that difficult time. And so it went on from there. I did my first set of 8 greeting cards, which sold out before I'd actually finished packing them with my mum and dad around their kitchen table. So we could hear the little Etsy ka-ching noise going on, and it was pandemonium. So it all started with a little post on social media and £250 for my first sets of greeting cards.
Wow, that's amazing. And gosh, I can really resonate with that, because sometimes when you are looking for a card or gift to send someone, and as you touched, it might just be that they're going through a bit of a rough patch. And I found it myself. I'm looking for cards, and either may already have the text inside, so it's happy birthday, and you just sort of feel like, oh, I'm not sure if this is quite gonna just convey something, I'm thinking about you, or give them, as you said, that positive little message.
Yeah, I think people find it really difficult to think what to write in cards when, because all of our cards really are sort of aimed around difficult times in life. There's those in-between moments. They're not birthday, Christmas cards, kind of thing. And I think because ours say the message or convey the message on the front of the card. So I think people then inside can just write thinking of you or I'm here for you. And I think that really makes someone's life a bit easier, because it is hard to know what to say sometimes when you haven't been through something like that yourself,
Yeah. And obviously you run the business with your husband, Jamie, as well. And from your own personal experiences, you both yourself have had a bit of a journey before starting the business as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, the reason I guess that I was out of work during the pandemic and able to start the business was because of the journey that we'd had. So our background, both of us were primary school teaching. So I taught for 5 years and Jamie taught for 7. And I'm sure many of your listeners will either be or know teachers or people who work in education. And I believe people who work in the NHS probably suffer with the same kind of issues. We were incredibly stressed and burnt out teaching. There's, it's a really, really taxing profession. I think getting worse and worse. And Jamie particularly had really suffered with his mental health and burnout, stress at work. And we got to a point in sort of 2017 time when, to be honest, we really were at breaking point in terms of not being happy. We almost ended up divorced over kind of the sort of stress and stuff that we were under. And we kind of got to the point where we were like, okay, we can either face the end of our marriage and the end of sort of life as we know it, or we can really do something about it. And so we chose to be a little bit radical. So we both left our jobs and sold our house. We had a mortgaged house that was mortgaged up to, we were mortgaged to our eyeballs, essentially. We didn't have money for holidays or anything like that. We literally just paid the mortgage every month. We sold our house, quit our jobs, and we moved into a little 23-foot touring caravan. And we set off with absolutely no idea what on earth we were going to do. We didn't take much money out of the house at all. So we had hardly anything, got rid of pretty much all of our possessions, just knowing that we needed to have to press the reset button really on our lives and our mental health and all the rest of it, our relationship. So we sort of ended up on a campsite in North Wales. I worked there as the warden. Jamie was working in bars and things like that, getting minimum wage jobs. And we did that for four years before the pandemic hit. And then when the campsite closed, obviously I was out of work. And I think it was just that melting pot. I'd had enough time to sort of step back and think, I really want to do something for myself and start something myself. I've always been business and entrepreneurial minded. I've had, cake businesses and jewelry businesses, you name it, kind of thing. None of them have any success whatsoever, but they've all been great learning curves. So no, I think it was the right time for it. And certainly all of what we'd been through fed into, I guess, the words and sentiments initially that went on the cards. So yeah, it's quite an organic way for it to grow, I guess. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And to have that courage in 2017 to, as you said, really take a hard look at the situation and take that plunge. And we often say, even Alex and I, I remember actually when COVID was happening where we were, and we were sort of felt like we were swimming against the tide in our other business. Okay, a lot of our work's got cancelled. What are we doing now? Where are we going with it? And we were in Sydney at the time. And I remember when the lockdowns kind of did lift up, we went on a road trip. We drove down Sydney to Melbourne to get out of the norm of where we were, to then have that, almost different views, different perspective, just to be able to, as you said, think, reset. So, I'm a big sort of believer and advocate for sometimes you have to change that whole scenery of the day to day.
It's a funny thing, you say courage as well, because courage is funny because it doesn't feel like courage at the time. It feels like desperation. And I think that's something that you learn about yourself when we were at, my own mental health really suffered through everything we went through together, Jamie and I, and you only really realise how strong and how brave you are when you're in a situation where you feel like you don't have any other choice. And it's really interesting because lots of people have always used that word courage for us, and it's lovely to hear. And looking back, it was courageous, but actually the mental decision to do it was the courageous part. And like I say, that was born purely out of desperation, and everything else was just logistics,
Yeah. Gosh, and I'm also a big believer everything happens for a reason, because obviously then, as you said, the campsite closed and you returned back to the north to then commence doing this. And how do you come up with the ideas and the themes for your illustrations?
So I think it's one of those things that it's quite an organic thing for me now. And I guess this kind of weaves back into the sort of the question about our journey, because when I first started this, like I say, it wasn't intended to be a business. And it was only after I had so many of my own sort of personal Facebook friends and things that had commented that I thought, okay, I'll start a page. So, I started a Facebook page for it. I didn't have Instagram until a sort of year into the business. And then because I was posting stuff on the page and really gaining followers quite rapidly, I think I got up to 10,000 followers on Facebook within probably about 6 or 7 months, which, you know, I mean,
Amazing.
It's not as quick as some people I know, but it felt quite rapid.
Yeah.
And obviously the more that grew, the more people were contacting me and saying, you know, telling me their stories of what they'd been through and sort of saying, could you do one with this theme or whatever? And I think that's kind of now definitely, because obviously we're up to sort of more than 250,000 followers now across Instagram and Facebook. And every day we get sort of tens of messages from people. And I feel really privileged, actually. I mean, some of it's quite heavy, as you can probably imagine, but I feel really privileged to have that snapshot of people's lives and journeys and difficult times, because it really does inspire, I guess, what direction I'm going in terms of the products and, you know, the words, particularly on the cards and the artwork. I'm a songwriter as well, so I think words have always been in me. And
really?
like my dream is to, I kind of like to do like a proper novel eventually, maybe. But I love the words. The words come easy, the drawing doesn't.
Well, watch this space. There might be a Fox Under the Moon soundtrack coming out as well in the coming years. That would be awesome.
Yes.
And you were touching on some of the words and such. How do you approach, you know, communication in the work to ensure that it does resonate with people?
People ask me this a lot, actually. One of the common questions I get from people is how do you think of the words? I think, I mean, our strapline for the business is finding beautiful ways to say the things that matter. And I think, like I say, I have always found words come easily to me. I think it's just, if you can call, you know, having a gift in life, I think that's probably mine. But I also think a lot of it is empathy, and it's about being able to put yourself into the shoes of how someone else might be feeling in a situation, and then think of a way of saying that or conveying that is soft and comforting and encouraging, you know. And I think the songwriting helps a lot, because when you write a song, you have to fit the whole story and a whole thing into very, very few words. And I think obviously with a greeting card, that's even more the case. And I absolutely love that process. It really fires me up to do that. And I think a lot of people say, oh, you know, you must have had a really terrible life to have gone through all of these things to be able to resonate with everything. And obviously, fortunately, I've not been through many, many of the things that I write about and stuff. And I think it's that empathy piece. It's about being able to really get yourself into the position of what someone else might be thinking and feeling, and how that would look in words, I guess, is the skill, I guess, to it.
And how do you decide what you say versus what you show? So how do you decide what's going to be words and then what will be the image?
So this is not going to be deep and heartfelt, this answer. And the reason for that is because I touched on this earlier, and that is simply because I really don't find the illustration side easy at all. I mean, I taught myself to draw in lockdown. I hadn't really done any kind of proper artwork before lockdown. I mean, I studied graphic design and product design when I was at school, and I loved it and wish I'd made a career of that in a way, but that's as it is, isn't it? But in terms of actual artwork, it's never been my strength, although I've always been creative. So I feel like I've always been guided on the illustration of what I can physically create. And that, if you look back at early pictures of mine versus the ones now, obviously I've come on a huge amount, and I'm almost comfortable with calling myself an artist nowadays, almost. But I think for me, I will tend to create a picture. I've done it recently with my Christmas cards, and I'll often put either the process of me drawing it, or I'll put the blank picture out onto my social media and just say to people, what do you think the theme should be for this one? And people will usually give me ideas and it's lovely because, you know, people see things in the pictures that I haven't even thought about, you know, like if there's a group of little animals staring up at the moon, there you might think it's to do with grief. Someone else might think friendship. And I think I usually go with the theme first, and then I'll narrow it down to exactly what I want to say. So
that's amazing. And you touched on social media there, which you have, as you said, a huge following, over 260,000 followers across Facebook and Instagram. Obviously, that's played quite a significant role for you in the business. What has been your approach to growing your social media?
I think a lot of it's all organic growth. We've never really done paid ads or anything like that. In fairness, it's all been organic, which is, you know, it's really nice. I think the nature of the sort of stuff I put out into the world and the timing of it has meant that people have really resonated and therefore shared it. And obviously if people share stuff, more people see it, and that's really good. I won't lie, because people sort of think social media is this sort of beast that has to be tamed, and to a point I think there is some truth in that. I mean, at the beginning of the business, the first 6-8 months, I would be spending 3, 4, 5 hours a day on social media, creating posts, replying to people's comments, going through, interacting with other people doing similar things, and all of that kind of thing. And there is no getting around. There's no silver bullet to social media. It is just a lot of graft with it. I think interaction is really key, and not just posting something and forgetting about it. Nowadays, I ease up a little bit. I still post something every day onto the social media platforms, but I don't spend as long every day kind of trawling through comments. I mean, there's a lot of them. Obviously, I try as best I can to get back to people now. It doesn't always happen. But I do think that interactivity is certainly in the early days what built our brand. The fact that I would get back to people with really heartfelt messages, and the nature of the fact people were telling me about, losing people to suicide, or maybe baby loss, or they might have been through like horrific anxiety or anorexia, or all of these things. You kind of, if you're anything like a decent person, you can't just write nothing back to that. Yeah. And I think that I went through and kind of put meaningful comments that came from the heart, rather than just, I wasn't thinking about growing my audience. And I think that helped. That does come with the caveat as well, though, that you have to also have a bit of a way of stepping away from that, because at one point I found it weighed really heavily on me, hearing people's stories that, were really difficult to hear. And I, like, my own sort of mental health started to get a little bit bashed, I guess, because I was taking all of that on myself. But yeah, I do think, like I say, with socials, it is just a case of get on there, post regularly, post what you care about, and interact with people who are there, and it's a slow burn. It's my Instagram page. I had fewer than 1,000 followers for the first year that I was on there. So that really was like a slow burn.
Oh, that's brilliant to hear. And you obviously started with cards, and you've now got books, wall prints, affirmation cards. At what point did you start to introduce these new product categories?
So the first book that I did came really from, I had about maybe 25, 30 greeting card designs at that point, and I was still just selling on Etsy at this time. And essentially my social media following, lots of people were saying, you really should just collate these cards into a book, because I had people who'd want to buy all of the designs, which is obviously really nice, really flattering, and so that's really what I did. So the first book that I had, which is called Fox Under the Moon, is a collection of those initial greeting cards with a few extra bits in, so that kind of came from there. Obviously I self-published it, which is a whole journey in itself, and something that I'm really passionate actually about, helping other people get into self-publishing, because I think it's a world of mystery, and people aren't happy to share information at all with stuff like that. And it's actually not difficult at all to get into and to do it. It doesn't have to be expensive, and you can create a quality product, actually really quite easily. But anyway, that's another story. So yeah, the book came next, and then I did a sort of volume 2 of that book, which was my second book, called To the Moon and Back. And then I've since done another one, which is like rhyming stories and things like that. Other products I've introduced as people have sort of asked for them. If I find the affirmation cards, I mean, I'll put my hand on my heart and say I've never used affirmation cards myself. It's not something that I would have thought to buy. I didn't really know much about them, but after people kept asking for them, I thought, actually, I can see how this would actually really align with what we're doing. So that was a huge leap of faith, because they cost us like £7,500 to get our first run of them done, which was an astronomical amount of money for our business, a small business, particularly back then. I mean, it still is a lot of money, of course. And I had no idea if they were going to sell. And actually, they turned out to be one of our top 3 best-selling products, which was a good thing. Amazing. Although some of the products we've done, we've had total nightmare stories with others, but that's as it is.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. And you touch on then challenges, actually. What have been some of the challenges that you've faced over the journey, and how have you overcome them?
Sure. So, I mean, it's funny, Jamie and I laugh about this all the time, because our thing that we always say about the business is whatever challenge or issue that you're facing right now, in 6 months' time, that is going to pale into insignificance, because there's going to be a gigantic challenge waiting for you just around the corner. And I think although that seems quite depressing, it's also a really encouraging thing, because so far, all of the things that at the time we thought was massive, I mean, like as a small example, the Christmas before last, when all of the postal strikes happened around November,
yes.
we just launched all of our Christmas range. I mean, I know lots of people were in the same boat. I mean, we'd launched our Christmas range. We'd done the Black Friday deal that everyone does, you know, and we posted everything off. A huge amount of our orders go out to America, so like international post. And we ended up with about £5,000 or £6,000 worth of orders just being stuck with the Royal Mail for like, you know, weeks at a time. We're so fortunate because our customer base, I think because I'm such a personal brand and people sort of know me through social media, like all of our customers were so understanding. We were so fortunate. And we did eventually in sort of February, March time, get all of the money back that we were owed, which was really good. But I remember at the time watching all of these tracking numbers just saying not delivered, not delivered, and literally sitting with my head in my hands going, what's going to be the end of the business? And now, like I look back now, like this Christmas, we had our new drama was that I'd designed a soft toy for Fox Under the Moon, which was, in all honesty, was a total vanity project and probably shouldn't have done it. It was just something I wanted to do and I got very swept away. We spent so much money on getting these toys done. They were manufactured abroad. And the sample arrived and it was beautiful. So I got 1,000 of them done and they turned up and 350 had the arms sewn on backwards.
Oh my goodness.
They all looked like they were like foxes skiing downhill. It was terrible. And again, they were already late because there was the problem with the shipping. I don't know what it was. So they were already late arriving. We were like missed our launch date. By this point, it's like mid-November. So I was like, so I launched the ones obviously that weren't faulty and then started the battle with the company to get a refund back for the faulty ones. And it was just, and they haven't sold that well. We've still got loads of them left.
Oh. Well, listeners, if you're listening, go check out the soft toys.
Yeah, I promise we're only selling the decent ones. We haven't sold any silly ones. Although when I told my followers about it, lots of people were like, oh, we'd have still had them. We'd have liked them.
Well, I know. I mean, then you can turn it into that sort of, golden ticket. Have you got a fox with a faulty arm, and then down the line, if you've been lucky enough to find one.
That's it. That's what I say about all the thousands of typos that are in my books and spelling errors. I'm like, when someone complains, I'm like, yeah, but that's going to be worth a fortune if I'm J.K. Rowling in a few years. Every cloud has a silver lining.
And in that instance with the manufacturer, were you able to recoup that? Obviously, it's been an error on their side.
Yeah, I mean, they fought it hard. I mean, what was annoying with it, I mean, obviously I'm not going to mention any names at all, but it was a company based in the UK that we used who are a very reputable toy importer, manufacturer. They do work with Disney and Sony and all sorts. So we thought, we're going to go for this because it's going to be a safe bet. We're not just going out to some place in China that we've not heard of or whatever. But they obviously contract out to their factories out there. So I think because we were very small fry to them, and this is a big learning curve and a kind of a tip, I guess, for small businesses, is you assume when you're a decent person trying to do a decent thing that everyone in business is going to treat you equally. And actually it's not true, because if you're a small business, a lot of these big companies, you don't mean anything to them. Your £5,000 is absolute small fry compared to some of their contracts. So they sort of fought us hard on it and sort of tried to make out that we were sort of, over-egging the problem and stuff. And they said, we've seen samples and they're fine and all the rest of it. So I just stood my ground. So I said, well, tell you what, I'll send you my samples and you can see if you think they're fine. And eventually they did. They refunded 2/3 of the ones that were sort of wonky, let's call them, and then there was another 100-ish that we donated to charity in the end, because we couldn't have sold them. We didn't want to sell them because they weren't perfect, but we also didn't want to just put them into landfill. So we thought we ended up just taking the labels off them and giving them to charity. So some good came of it, of course. I'm sure some poorer children had a nice wonky fox for Christmas.
Yeah, it really is a roller coaster, isn't it, this journey? Because as you said, there's always, we always say, we're forever putting out fires, and, you get one thing sorted and you're like, guess what's been resolved? And literally the day after, you'll wake up to something else. So it definitely keeps us all on our toes.
Absolutely. Yeah, the EU has been another huge problem for us with after post Brexit, not being able to get stuff shipped out there. We've had untold issues with that. So, but yeah, like you say, every problem that comes along is a little bit bigger than the one before. But you march through it and you will learn, and that is how you learn. And I swear, one day, people in our situation now that are quite, near the beginning of the ladder, by the time we reach the top, we'll be able to write the book on business.
Absolutely. Now, before I go on to asking you some of the questions from our pack, give us a little insight of what it is like to work with your husband. Obviously, Alex and I are in a relationship, but how does it work for yourself and Jamie, and how do you divide and conquer those roles and responsibilities?
Yeah, it's a really good question, actually. Jamie joined me in the business in April of 2022, so probably about roughly a year after I've been doing it on my own. And to be honest, it was a nice organic thing because his contract with the NHS was coming to an end anyway. He could have extended it if he'd wanted to, but I was getting to a point where I was really starting to think, okay, this is more than a hobby now, and we really can make this into something. And I think I'd sort of semi-convinced him. By this point, we were sort of working out of my mum's non-converted attic space. So I was kind of up and down the ladder and stuff in January with my boiler suit on and all the rest of it. So I think he'd started to see the potential for it. So he joined. And originally we were sort of both trying to do orders, we were both trying to contact customers, and we were very on top of each other. And there was a while when we thought, we love each other dearly, of course, but we were like, okay, this could be the second end of our marriage right here. So I think with all of the zen and maturity we'd gained over the sort of things we'd been through in the last 5 years, I think we had a serious sit down and thought, okay, if this is going to work, we need to have separate areas in this business. We need to have things, because at the end of the day, it was my baby, and I will happily hold my hands up and say I was probably an absolute nightmare because I didn't want to compromise on anything. I didn't want to let anything go that was what I had been doing before. It was really hard for me to not be a control freak, and poor Jamie, really, because he was only trying to do the right thing. So we decided we'd start trying to grow the wholesale side of the business, and it seemed ideal for that to be the bit he took on. So he does all of our managing all of the accounts for our independent gift shops and and bigger stores and stuff like that. And he's flying with it. I mean, wholesale is rapidly kind of catching up now with our direct to customer sales. Really, really going well for us. So I think that is the biggest key if you're going to work with your spouse or partner, is just make sure you have separate roles. Legally, we 50-50 own the business, but Jamie always says I have an unofficial 51%. So if there's anything we're really, really loggerheads on, I get final say. I've never had to evoke it yet. Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, that's great. And yeah, I can definitely resonate and agree with, some of those recommendations, and having, clearer areas of sort of who does what for sure. Oh, well, thank you so much for just sharing so much of your journey to date. And it really is amazing what you guys have achieved, and really just excited to see what, where you guys continue to go next.
Oh, thank you.
But some questions from our pack, which I like to ask everybody. So I've picked some cards from our first edition pack.
Yeah.
So question number 1, and it is a favourite question actually. If you came with a warning label, what would it say?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm gonna give you the warning label that my husband Jamie would probably tell you, and I think he would say sunny with the chance of a hurricane. Like, that's what it would say, because I am the most exuberant, smiley, popular person, but I'm also like a whirlwind when I get on one, with not in a bad way, but if I get an idea or if I want something done, there's just a wake in my in my wake is just absolute chaos. And so, yeah, if you're on the receiving end or in the eye of the storm, then goodness help you.
That is fantastic. I love that one. I've not heard that sort of phrase before, so that is brilliant. Question number 2. What is the secret to a happy life?
I think there's 2 related secrets to a happy life. The one is not to take anything too seriously unless it's serious, and I think being able to define what is actually serious in life and what can be sort of breathed through is one thing. And I think being as much as you can in the moment every day. I think we live, like, fear keeps you trapped in the present, and so does anxiety. So trapped in the future. And I just think it's just live in the now, because you have no guarantee. You can't change what happened yesterday. You've no idea you're going to even have a tomorrow. So I feel like happiness genuinely is being in the moment.
That is beautiful. And I felt like you would have some quite good insight on that, just from the journey you've been on, but also from
pressure.
From the words. I do put a little thought into these cards, actually, when I pick them for the guests. I think, this would be interesting. And question number 3. What is one of your pet hates?
Small talk. That is my biggest pet hate. Yeah, so I really don't like small talk. I'm very, very aligned with you on this for certain. I'm a very outgoing person, but I hate going into new social situations because I hate talking about the small stuff. And I also have a little bit more of a petty one. My pet peeve, I will call it, is when people are really rubbish at getting back to you. You know, like friends I'm talking about here, when you kind of feel like things are very one-sided, but you like that person too much to be too annoyed by it. I just think, come on, text message takes 10 seconds.
Definitely. And one of my ways that I get around it is people get voice notes from me.
That's a good idea.
And I have some friends that are like, oh, I hate voice notes. And I'm like, this is one of my easiest ways to keep in contact with people. And then if I'm only one-handed, they get a voice note, which sometimes I will admit turns into a small podcast episode to them. So, but no. Yeah,
I don't care. I would accept paper aeroplane or a fax from some of the people I don't hear from, to be honest with you. I just want to know that you're still alive.
And I have had over the years, actually, that I've followed up with certain friends and gone, are you okay? Or ask someone else, because you do something then think, hang on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I remember even a few years ago, a good friend that I then realised that really I just know this friend one-on-one, really. I thought our wider circle of friends aren't connected. I mean, I used to work with her, and whenever we catch up, it's predominantly her and I. And I did think, well, actually, if something happened to her, how would I know? Because her family or friends wouldn't necessarily think of me to contact.
No. Yeah, that's a good point.
And then I think I did put this in a voice note to her message, and then I heard back from her.
I'm going to need regular check-ins.
I just had that thought that morning. I went, crikey, actually, something might have happened because I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Well, all fantastic answers. And it's almost tempting to ask you more, but I won't. I'll keep it the 3. But the finishing question that I like to ask all our guests is, if you could ask any person, dead or alive, a question, who would it be and what would you ask them?
Oh, do you know, I've got a lot for this one, but what I'm going to say, something I would love to ask and get a definitive answer on. I would like to ask Steve Jobs why the Apple logo, the real reason why it has a bite out of it, because there's so many theories, and even like the designer of it has been wishy-washy about it, and there's like 3 or 4 common things. And I'm a real design geek. Like when I was at school, I studied graphic design. I had a fantastic teacher who got me like really interested in like the Bauhaus movement and all of that. And there's like loads of links between that and Steve Jobs and Apple. And it's always bugged me. It's like, I don't know, and no one will ever know the real reason. So yeah.
Oh, I love that. And I must say, you'll have probably come across the little books, the Little Big People series.
Yes, yeah.
We got gifted the Steve Jobs one, so that was actually I hadn't realised he was adopted and things like that until I read these books.
Fascinating story,
really interesting.
But yeah, if you Google the Apple logo and like the bite out of it, there's some fascinating, like, I wouldn't say conspiracy theories, but just theories on why, and it's Anyway, there we are.
Oh, equally, we're really passionate about the world of it, also design, branding, etc. Just fascinating, some of the actual origins of things. How can our listeners learn more about Fox Under the Moon, connect with you guys?
So our website is foxunderthemoonart.com, and if you go onto any of the social platforms, even TikTok, the dreaded, and just type in Fox Under the Moon, you'll find us on there. We'll come up. We've got the verified symbol on Instagram, but you'll find Fox Under the Moon wherever you look for us.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today. I've really loved chatting to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been really lovely. It's really nice.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Be sure to check out the show notes for more information on today's guests. And if really good conversations are your thing, hit subscribe and join us next time for more business journeys, insights and banter.